to share their time and expertise with us today. And I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves. And I'll start with Mr. Bob Clark, who's the president of Baskerville. If you would like to share a little bit about himself and his firm.
Thank you, Corey. Yeah, my name is Bob Clark. I'm president of Baskerville. We're headquartered here in Michigan, and we have 5 locations and about 185 people.
All right. And thank you, Bob. And next we have design director and a principal at HKS.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Corey, and thank you, Virginia, for putting this together. Like Corey said, I'm design director and principal at HKS. I'm in the Richmond office, but we work closely with the DC and New York offices as we collaborate through the region. We have 23 offices and 1,500 people all over the world.
Thank you, Nick. I'm sure you're going to be able to provide some great expertise throughout this discussion. And lastly, we have the dynamic duo from Hanbury. We have Principal and Operations Manager, Mr. Bill Hopkins, who's joined by a Principal and Design Director, Mr. Rob Reese. Bill?
Good afternoon, everyone. Hanbury is a firm of a little over 70 people. We have offices in Norfolk, Blacksburg, Raleigh, and Clemson, South Carolina. And I'm in the work in the Norfolk office.
Fantastic. And Rob, did you want to add anything?
I'm Rob Reese, Principal and Design Director with Hanbury, and I too work in the Norfolk office and am currently in my breakfast room.
All right. It's a beautiful space there. And actually, Rob is the immediate past president of AIA Virginia as well. All right. So let's get to it. We have a few questions here. And as I mentioned before, we're all going through uncharted waters. And maybe we could open up discussion based off of what are each of you doing in terms of firm culture and trying to bring back just a sense of normalcy with your staff. Bill, you want to start off with that one? How are you bringing a sense of normalcy to your firm culture?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So a few things. A lot of our, if not all of our project teams have already implemented brief daily check-ins, obviously virtually. And they essentially go through what everybody's working on for the day, what do they want to have accomplished, what do they need help with, et cetera. And then a couple of our other offices, Raleigh and Blacksburg in particular, have also, they're doing the same thing as a group and touching base 2 to 3 times a week just to keep everybody connected. It just so happens we already had on our calendar our monthly firm meeting. We call it our firm forum yesterday afternoon. And in preparation for that, we use that as an opportunity to solicit feedback from everybody in the firm on a number of issues, like what's working well for you, how's your technology going, what sort of tips can you share that are helping the transition to working remotely go more smoothly, and of course, how can we help? And of course, the attendance yesterday was, it may have been 100% or very close to, and got a lot of positive feedback on it and suggestions that we do that once a week, just get the whole firm together and get back to some sense of normalcy with presenting our project work and talking about business development, et cetera.
Very good. And Nick, how about yourself with a global firm at HKS? What are you all doing to maintain a sense of normalcy in firm culture?
Yeah, thanks, Corey. Just starting off by simple things matter. Dan and each office is trying to create a mantra of showing your face and sharing your space, just like some of us are doing today. Sharing your camera while in video conferencing matters. Seeing facial expressions, even virtually, brings us that much closer than simply using voice calls. Sharing your workspace and help visualize where your team is. We set up a firm-wide Yammer page for this. Think of professional Facebook setting. So just, simply connecting us in that way matters. And then, over communicating and adding a bit of levity to the situation. As you can imagine, some might not know, some might know. We're one firm, so we collaborate often with offices around the world. Probably 90% of our work is cross-office collaboration, so we're kind of used to this. Obviously, we're not used to this in terms of this extreme, but we have Microsoft Teams pages created that we can invite certain team members in strategic ways. We have one for our Richmond office, and I'll have to tell you, it's brought us together even more so. Our nature of our work, our Richmond office typically works with other offices a lot. And so a lot of people, maybe half the office, half of our 30 people can be traveling at one point. So, creating these teams, creating touch points. We had a virtual happy hour last night, which was fantastic. We had probably 25 of our 30 office colleagues join us and talk about what their favorite drink was. So we're trying to use this as an opportunity to bring us closer than ever before.
I love it. I love it. And you said something that was really spectacular in terms of the communication piece, where the body language and the facial expressions, I think probably makes up, 70% of communication. So
Exactly.
thanks for touching on that. And Bob, how about you at Baskerville?
So we implemented some time ago a work anywhere mantra, trying to build the infrastructure to work anywhere. We never really expected to have everyone working remotely like this. It was never built for that level. We're lucky and pleased to see it's actually doing as we intended. We will work remote starting on Monday. Starting last week, we started putting out daily updates. I put an email out to
Hey,
the
Bob,
firm every
may I
day talking about logistics, technical stuff, whatever's, updates from where we are, what's going on, and then there's always some levity, some fun stuff in there. We're encouraging everyone, again, the cameras, we're a Microsoft Teams shop. We use Teams extensively. It's been the video piece is key because, yes.
Hey, Bob, can you check your audio for one moment? It seems like it might be a little audio difficulty with your microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
There you go. Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Corey?
Loud and clear.
Bob, you're on mute right now.
Corey, are you there?
I'm here.
Bob, you may want to join using the telephone audio. It looks like maybe you're breaking up using the voice over IP. Corey, maybe we could move on to the next and then come back to Bob when he's back on.
Absolutely. So Bob, we'll circle back to you, my friend. Nick, is your team working remotely at the moment?
Yes. So I would say 90% of our firm is working remotely, and I'll touch on a couple of our policies to kind of help people understand what we're incorporating. We do have all of our offices open to staff who wish to work from the office, but emphasizing incorporating the national health and safety policies in effect. So, for an in-person internal team meeting, we're limiting the attendees to 3 or less and not in a public setting. And for an in-person client meeting, we're limiting the attendees to less than 5, again, not in a non-public setting. So obviously international travel is suspended and domestic travel is on a case-by-case basis, but strongly recommended virtual. So that's kind of how we're working.
That's great. And also, you had shared with me a little bit about a project case study, and you had indicated leading a specific project team over the course of last week. And we'd love to hear, what worked well last week during that episode, and what were some of the challenges that you're still seeing as you try to bring all the troops together to accomplish a common mission, completing a project?
Yeah, thanks, Corey. So the Richmond and DC office is working on a 200,000 square foot multifamily project, and we have been for the last couple months. And so we've implemented a couple things, obviously having daily Zoom calls for about an hour and a half to 2 hours to go over progress. And with Zoom, you're able to share your screen, you're able to do real-time edits. Everyone still has a voice. There's no one just presenting. It's more of a work session type environment. It's really been fantastic. We do one of those every day. We share content in between those daily check-ins through email when necessary. We also constantly connect via Skype when necessary. So that's our internal chat software that we use quite often. When you have a quick question, either pick up the phone, text, or Skype. We created a database for all of our personal cell phones to make sure everyone is well aware of how best to contact you. We also created a database on every project and who's working on what, so you have a quick reference there. And so I will have to say, before this didn't go down, we had some collaboration challenges, but I'll have to tell you, this rigor in our process has brought us together even better than before, and just trying to take a silver lining in everything that's happening. Over communication, always asking questions, not being afraid to ask a question, especially for our junior designers to understand that and know that. We're all trying to lift each other up during this time. So.
Corey, hopefully I'm back on. You can hear me now.
Perfect time. And Bob, you're loud and clear. So if you could, Bob, if you wanted to just take a step back and just maybe summarize your first answer and then share with us, I think I heard that you're starting to work remote maybe next week. And kind of share with us some policies that you might be having in place.
We went remote on Monday. We went full remote. The funny part was we had scheduled a system-wide test for Tuesday. And then when all things broke last Thursday, we started reevaluating. We went full remote work this past Monday, so we're finishing up our first week fully remote. We are using Teams. We are highly encouraging of the video. The old adage, what's the first thing you do when you get on a video call? You smile. That sets a tone, sets a culture. We also are very, very worried and very concerned about our sense of community. We feel like we have a very good culture, very good, strong sense of community. We're encouraging all of our team leads, project leads, to really reach out and have active communication multiple times a day with all their staff and all the teams, both on their regular staff and on project staff, which may be the same people, may not be the same people, to keep that sense of community as strong and as vibrant as we can. We're also encouraging that, for internal meetings, not necessarily client meetings, because we're doing client meetings via Teams also, but for internal meetings, the best mask, best hat, best makeup, keep the levity there. This is all kind of, stressful and trying for all of us.
Indeed. And, one thing I read, Bob, was to keep the morning routine, so if you normally jump in the shower and get dressed for a regular day of work, do the same here to kind of stay in that same routine. So very good insight. And Rob, the design director, my friend, talk to us a little bit about is your staff working remotely, and how are you keeping that sense of community on your design project?
Rob, we're not hearing you. You may be on mute.
Sorry, I was muted. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, what I was starting to say was that fortunately we're somewhat familiar with working across our offices and doing a lot electronically. So in certain regards, it's kind of business as usual for some teams and some people. However, we too sort of did the stress test on Saturday to make sure that, that there weren't issues that were unforeseen when everybody is dependent upon doing things electronically. But there are some real inconveniences, like I don't have a scanner 20 steps away, so I'm taking photographs of hand-drawn sort of things and using those to circulate those. We're going to be doing a client meeting with all iPhone photos of sketches on trace. So that'll be sort of new. Quality isn't as good as we'd like it to be, but it's it's a lot of the same principles that have already been mentioned. And that's just regular check-ins, people making sure that they're communicating, that we're, I think Nick said, or somebody said, sort of hyper communication, just to make sure that we're almost over communicating, just to make sure that that things aren't getting kind of lost in the process. And so it's a lot of the same protocols that we normally work with, but they're either kind of at a heightened level, or it's just more acute that we follow them at this point in time. As well, just communicating with all our clients, since we have completely closed our offices, and we've established protocols for getting in and out and retrieving things, just to make sure that there's no kind of cross-contamination, or that the office doesn't get contaminated when we all go back, hopefully at some point soon. We're just trying to follow those and adjust those as they come up. One thing that I'd highly recommend is just make sure you test your technology, or if you're new to a platform or something, don't wait until 5 minutes before you're meeting with a client, because you'll probably lose the first 15 or 20 and then maybe go back to some other system you're more familiar with. So we've been, at a certain point in time, we'll all be up to speed on all of that, but it's a really good idea just to test everything and make sure you're familiar.
That's great. And Rob, I'll stay with you, my friend. What kind of platforms are y'all using to host virtual meetings? And I'm sure the audience would love to hear, how are you kind of managing clients and their expectations as well? We've heard the term over communicating quite a bit today, but how are you using that to manage your clients' expectations?
Well, it depends upon the type of meeting. Like, I've been using primarily just GoToMeeting, but the teams are using the Microsoft Teams. Bill, maybe you can talk about that a little bit more, because you're more active with the project teams.
Sure. Yes. So just about everybody has really latched on to Microsoft Teams, much more so than when this happened. Where a lot of people are finding it has a lot more functionality and integrated applications that goes well beyond just having virtual meetings. There's live chat. You can do a quick video conference. There's an app called Planner, where some of the teams are using that to make assignments to people and track progress. So Teams seems to be the kind of the daily go-to, and then GoToMeeting, as Rob said, is more for planned meetings, especially with clients, where you don't need all that functionality.
Mm-hmm.
Is anyone using Zoom?
I use Zoom, HKSU Zooms, sorry. We've used it for quite some time, and I can talk a little bit about, the benefits and challenges, but I will echo the guys from Hanbury and Microsoft Teams. If you're not familiar with it, you should definitely get familiar with it. It's a great organizational tool, real-time sharing platform for diverse teams. It's amazing. It works like Google Drive, but better. So our teams are working within that, and we've created new teams to kind of collaborate across different teams throughout the last week and a half or so. So with Zoom, we rely on that heavily in terms of daily check-ins with work sharing and video capabilities. Obviously, the big change, and it's been exciting, is the fact that we're sharing our live cameras so that we can connect emotionally and physically with our teams. You can obviously share your screen and the work that you're working on, and seamlessly provide real-time edits and critiques. So that's been great. The challenges that we personally faced were audio-based. And so sometimes we get bumped based on overuse on personal Wi-Fi. So that's been the challenge through every platform we're using, even with our BIM cloud work, is obviously we're unfamiliar with how strong each person's personal Wi-Fi is. So we're recommending them connect hardline in. So.
And thanks for sharing. Very insightful information. I'm going to switch gears and talk a little bit about the operations side, such as building information modeling, using Revit, and so forth. Anyone can jump on this question, but discuss any challenges that you're seeing, using them from remote access, if any. Is anyone having any issues with that?
This is Phil with Hanbury. We are not, thankfully. Again, as Rob mentioned earlier, we moved to a virtual network environment several years ago, and in more recent years have been utilizing BIM 360 on a lot of our projects, especially larger projects. So obviously the Revit model is hosted on a cloud server. But yeah, so far, from what we heard this week, it's really pretty much seamless and same performance you would expect at the office, thankfully.
Yep.
This is Bob Clark. The interesting thing we're seeing a little bit is we have our Revit in our cloud. We did a survey. We sent an IT survey out to our folks during this first week of being remote work, saying, okay, what's working, what's not working? Let's do some check-ins on ourselves and see how we can help improve the system. And we received inconsistent data from folks saying, yep, Revit's just as fast as always. Others saying, no, it's not. And we're trying to isolate that. And what we think is happening, and we have no way of verifying this exactly, is the neighborhood broadband in people's own neighborhoods, houses.
Mm-hmm.
My household, I have 2 teenagers and a wife, and all 4 of us are here working. Kids are already doing streaming from school. Wife's doing streaming. Verizon would never throttle us. I would never suggest that. But I do wonder if we're having broadband issues from a capacity standpoint that's localized, and that's hard to, because again, the server speed is the server speed, but some of our folks are having more difficult time getting access to it, which is just an interesting dynamic we didn't expect.
And I could see that definitely in our areas that really struggle with broadband, like in Southside Virginia or Southwest Virginia. I could certainly see that being an issue as well, just based off of your region that you live in here. So, how many of you have projects under construction? I'd imagine maybe all of you do. Talk to us a little bit, and I'll start with Nick, about how you all are handling construction administration services and following the contract, site visits and things like that. So Nick, you want to start off with that one?
Sure. We might be a little bit more virtual than most. So many of our CA tasks are virtual by design, so the process hasn't been disrupted much. Obviously, there's some great uncertainty with Pennsylvania shutting everything down. We have a couple projects in Pennsylvania. Naturally enough, they're keeping the healthcare projects going, which they should, but all other sectors might be impacted in a big way. So we're kind of bracing for that. Our local VCU project pay app reviews and OAC meetings had call-in opportunities prior to this, and they now have transitioned to being 100% virtual. So we're relying on cameras and FaceTime apps to review kind of those pay apps. And then, obviously, we're trying to follow our contractor friends and what they're trying to do up in Reston. They're trying to limit no more than 5 people on the job site within a certain radius. So there's obviously challenges there. But in terms of our workflow, it hasn't been affected as much. We're basically kind of a virtual process-driven firm as it is. So.
I'll chime in, add on to what Nick said. We're very similar. We've told our folks to get no air travel, no train travel, local site visits. We have a lot of out-of-state site visits that are now on hold. Clients are being very understanding. It's a discussion with all the clients in that respect. We're a new Forma shop, so we're using new Forma, which if we weren't paperless before, we are definitely paperless now. And we're restricting the local sites to principal approval. So there's got to be a really good reason for someone to go onto a job site right now. We're trying to maintain the physical distancing and flatten this thing out.
Sorry, I had myself on mute. so I apologize. But in terms of approving pay applications, you and Nick both said that you've been doing that virtually. Talk to us a little bit about how that works. Does the GC take the photographs for you, or is it the owner? And how does that work? Or just the normal duties of a site visit, just making sure things were installed in accordance with the documents. Have you not had any issues thus far?
Yeah, for us, it's GC and or owner's rep that takes those photos and documents it for us.
Yeah, so far, like Nick, we're 1 week in. Photos are sufficing right now, even for samples. We're trying not to ship samples places. We're trying to use digital imaging, high-res cameras for sample transportation as well, sample verification.
Excellent. Rob and Bill, you want to weigh in?
Sure. Just a couple things to add. A lot of similarities to the way Hanbury handles construction administration, but one thing that has been interesting is the information that we're getting from our contractor partners on what they are doing to manage projects that are under construction and how they're, all the steps they're taking to ensure safety of employees and the like, including taking temperatures of all labor or workers. They have to fill out a questionnaire on any related to any travel that they've made recently. They're holding subcontractor meetings outside, not in a trailer, so they're being very proactive. And we do have some projects that are under construction or are just about to start construction. And so far, most of those that are about to start are moving forward. Do have one interesting anecdote with a project in North Carolina. And you all may know we do a fair amount of student housing. And in this case, this university is really concerned about their students not having a place to live if they take a residence hall that was going to be renovated this summer, taking that offline and displacing students or not having a place to come back. Students both domestically and internationally. So that has will likely pause for a year just to keep it online. Now that's probably all changing each day, but for the most part, they're moving forward.
So in general, it seems that clients, for the most part, are being flexible thus far. Understand we don't know how long this will last. It seems like everybody has been pulling together as a community and working to get through. That's what it sounds like.
Yes, very much so.
All right. Well, I'll ask one more question for discussion before we turn it over to the audience. And this question has to do with more business continuity, if you will. And so just curious, we can kind of work through the lines here, and we'll stay with Bill over at Hanbury. Has your firm begun to have conversations in terms of business continuity in the event that a key leader, such as a principal, contracts COVID-19? How does that look in terms of policy if you start to have those discussions? And for that matter, if any staff member is unfortunate to contract the COVID-19, how is that going to be handled within the firm? And just sharing kind of your initial conversations would be helpful.
Well, my answer will be brief because we are having that conversation, but we have not really finalized any particular policy, but obviously something that has been identified as highly important and needs attention right away. But we're still working on that. Rob, did you have anything to add to that? Or?
No, nothing other than maybe it's just a stroke of luck that our new CEO and new president are both relatively young, if the young are truly less susceptible. So that's maybe just lucky. But no, we're just in the midst of that, and we plan to continue those discussions. Sure.
And Bob, have you all started those discussions at Baskerville?
We have. We have a system in place already. Again, we have we're locally based with our four offices of the Eastern Seaboard. We have a chairman, we have a president, I'm the president, we have a secretary, and we have a vice president. So in past times of either extended vacations, which we've experienced, or unusual emergency surgery type things, which we've experienced, the contingencies worked. And again, the group is very much aligned, and the communication has been good, and we've managed to go through those situations okay. Albeit those are nothing like this. We feel like we've a bit tested our system, and we have some confidence in it. So we feel good about where we're headed with it. Should something happen, we did have a scare in our DC office. One of our young folks had the fever, had the symptoms. Of course, that sent a bit of stress through all of our offices. We were lucky; it turned out it was strep throat. It was not COVID, so we were blessed in that situation. But yeah, all nervous about it, and of course, we think you never know till you get there, but we think we have a plan in place. We hope.
Yeah, I'll echo these guys' comments. Obviously, HKS is, they're our center is Dallas, so we have an executive team, board of directors, and shareholders that would cast the vote if something became dire and we had to create a succession plan for anyone in those positions. Locally, it's a little bit differently because, say for example, Leslie Hansen, our office director, something happens to her, we would assign someone to take over her responsibilities locally and then have support from other offices to kind of help coach them up. So we have several processes in place to kind of respond to these things.
That's great. And as the AIA, I'll continue to look for other resources that might help inform how to handle those situations, even if it's not a key leader, just a regular staff employee. Because I will say, this COVID-19, it sees no discrimination. Actually, I know someone personally who actually has it in Northern Virginia, 30 years old, were on a respirator for 7 or 8 days. So you certainly don't have to be old to get it and to be humbled by it real quickly. So it is a serious thing. So thank you all for sharing kind of what you've had done so far and the conversations that you're having. This might be an appropriate time, Maria, if there's any questions that have come in, that we can take them to the floor.
Sure. And I'll also encourage anyone who has questions to keep submitting them through the chat tool. But one of the things that came up during the discussion was related to some smaller practitioners who are just new to approaching remote work and virtual practice. Do you have any thoughts on maybe some technologies you'd recommend, or best practices for launching virtual practice under duress, if you will?
This is Bob Clark. I would offer that a video system, whether it's WebEx, Teams, GoToMeeting, whatever it is, Zoom, makes a huge difference. The monthly fees on those per person are not horrible. After that, it's a matter of having that common server for file storage. And there's numerous ways to do that, either cloud-based or tying in local, depending on the size of the company.
We had someone from the audience mention that they use Slack to create group projects for team questions and general communication. Does anyone on the panel have experience with Slack, or you want to share any insights about using it?
We don't use Slack at Baskerville, so I can't speak to it.
I'm unfamiliar, so I'm interested to hear.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Jeannie says she does. Do you have audio?
Yeah, I'm gonna unmute Jean, unless you are able to unmute yourself there. I'm gonna unmute Jean, and I'm gonna go ahead and unmute Deborah too, who also made this comment. So Jean, you able to share your experience?
Yeah, our interior design team has been working with Slack for probably a couple of years now, and they've found that it has been very helpful for them. And that's why they did it as a test, and they felt like it's worked really great. So they've kept it up, and other teams have picked it up as well. So it is working well for us.
Would you say that is there something that it does particularly well that's maybe better than just typical email?
They've shared photographs, particularly with the interior design group, sharing photographs of products or images, and just being able to quickly, just kind of like the IM messenger, quickly get in touch with each other.
Great. We've also, Nick made a suggestion to the group about making sure to take care of your own health and wellness. Nick, do you want to elaborate on that to the whole team and see if anybody else has some suggestions on maintaining sanity, health, and wellness while working remotely?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about that. We have stand-sit desks. We incorporated those into our new space in the last couple of years. So I miss my stand-sit desk because I'm now sitting far more than ever. But I will recommend you all kind of building in even in your calendar. I don't do anything unless it's in my calendar. Little breaks to walk around, get water, go outside. It sounds simple, but when you're working from home and you're at your computer, there's so many things hitting you at the same time. There's no really incentive to get up and talk to coworkers. So bake that into your day. It's important. Your health and wellness is the most important thing. So as well as kind of be positive when you're talking to your other employees. A lot of people might not be in a positive setting as you. So the more you embrace that mentality, others will read into that. And a lot of people are in isolation right now without roommates and that sort of thing, without families. So being mindful of that and their mental wellness is of the utmost importance. So.
Well, and I'll just
comment on what Nick
that.
said. Nick struck a nerve on something he said about working from home. That another challenge we found through this, not just the isolation and the socialization and the sense of community we're all trying to keep with our firms, but our folks took their laptops home on last week and are on their laptops this week. And the new issue we're having is my laptop screen's not my 2-screen dual monitor setup that makes me so efficient and productive. How can I do something about that? So what we've done is we've opened the firm up in limited numbers as people request to come back in and just grab from the office the docking station and monitors as they see fit to take home. We bring them all back when it's said and done, but for now, just to keep that productivity as best we can and make them feel as at ease as possible. Take whatever tech we have in the office that can make you more productive at home. We're game for it.
Great.
That's a great idea, Bob. And I just want to circle back to what Nick said just real quick. It's something that I've been doing personally. If you're able to be a part of a meeting without having to take notes and things like that and just be a contributor, I've been doing walking meetings. That's certainly helped us. So in 1 hour, you can easily walk on a nice day without sweating, probably 3 miles in 60
That's
minutes.
awesome, Corey.
What's that?
I said that's awesome.
Yeah. So I've been trying to do that, once a day. Take one of my meetings as a walking meeting outside. The weather's been so nice. So, but all right, Rhea, what else do you have?
Yeah, so we had a question come in from Professor Virginia Tech, actually a couple of them. Are firms anticipating an immediate effect on hiring, project starts, or anticipate more of a delayed reaction?
I can take that quickly. We just finished our round of interviews. We felt it important to keep our interview times and change them to virtual meetings. And so we just finished our round of interviews, and this is going to affect us in terms of numbers and delay. Obviously, we had a number of full-time positions and intern positions before this all kind of happened. We're still trying to reassess that and understand our needs and be conservative in that way. So one of the strategies was delaying their start time, obviously, until June, July. Obviously that affects summer interns in a big way. So we're leveraging more for full-time hires than summer interns now, unfortunately. So that's kind of how we're responding.
We are similar in that the work level is unknown at this point. We still feel pretty good. Some of our sectors have had no impact. Some sectors have had more significant impact. Again, we're 10 days into this in some real fashion so far. Our intern situation is still as it was and as we intended to be, hopefully for the summer. Future hires are still up in the air a little bit. And again, depending on which economist you follow, the story is we're in a recession already. We just don't know it yet because the trailing data hasn't come forward and it hasn't been enough time to show it yet. So we think there is definitely some negative impacts to come. Part of our contingency planning is that right now. That's just the honest assessment of where we are.
We are carefully monitoring our expenses much more frequently than we would normally, just for that very reason, just to try to keep an up-to-date picture as things evolve, whether project does slip a few months and hopefully any projects that are coming online, just to just have as accurate a picture of our projected revenue and cash flow to be able to make decisions about expenses and hiring, of course.
It looks like from the audience, there's a pretty similar response with folks just pressing the pause button on actively hiring folks. Let's see, I did have one other question. Do you have any suggestions on how to tackle the loss of efficiency due to remote connectivity issues? Any thoughts to share?
I'll share. We opened up a job number for our folks that if they're having connectivity issues or IT issues, or some reason they're not working at the speed they think they are, instead of just putting it on the job, it's more time against the job to track it against this job number if it's any substantial time, so that we can identify it, isolate it, and try and address it. So we want to be we know there's going to be some hiccups in the learning curve. We hope we get more efficient as we go forward. Hopefully, we won't have to do this for so long, but we want the efficiency there as we move forward. But we want to be able to find the issues, identify them, and try and correct as we go. That's the job.
Yeah. We've done something similar, Bob. Well done. We have a COVID-19 job number that, any inefficiencies, any technology that goes down, we're trying to assess that time and figure out how we're going to allocate that across our.
We've just promoted communication that if anybody is having an issue, that they don't sit on it or wait, but they, as quickly as they can, they reach out to the people in the office that are most likely able to address it or to share it firm-wide to get other input. But it was something we talked about in our firm forum yesterday, that we need to be really communicative in this process and not and just jump on any issues that emerge, because many of them we can't even anticipate right now.
And I would just add, just as a former project manager in practice, it's just this notion of tempering our expectations. And I was really hard on myself when this first started. It was like, it is physically impossible with a toddler running around to get 8 hours of solid work in consecutively. It's going to be very broken, and which in itself has inefficiency. So it's just kind of tempering from a managerial point of view, your expectations of what you can really get done in a day, I think is also going to be helpful. I'm not sure if anyone else feels like that, but it's been a struggle on this end.
But it's Corey, funny you say that. We have one of our folks relayed to me that between her and her husband and their kids at home, they're each doing shift work. He's doing the first 4 hours of the day while she's with the kids. She does the second 4 hours, then he does 4 hours, and she does 4 hours. So they're trying to get their time in over the course of the whole day, not just the normal conventional workday we're all used to.
You're exactly right. So it is a true 24-hour workday.
I'd say too that it depends upon your family setup and how old your kids are and all of that. But you know, a lot of people talk about the different techniques that they're employing to address all of that. On the other hand, few people have mentioned that there's maybe a little bit higher productivity because of an ability to focus without a lot of the distractions that occur in the office. And you know, I'd have to say I'm probably in that category with two teenagers that are off, either virtual school or whatever. But anyways, it's a pretty nice opportunity to just focus on different things. So there can be increased productivity.
Yeah, I'll echo Hanbury. Obviously, we've implemented true flexibility, but with flexibility comes transparency. So there's an expectation there with our employees. You know, as long as we're committing, you know, the work to our clients and fulfilling that. If you need to work from 7 a.m. to 4 and then take a break and come back, if, you know, true flexibility is at the forefront of what we're trying to empower our people to do. So
Nick, to that point, because I've heard a few folks talk about, you know, shift work. When you're mentioning transparency, is that just really communicating very actively with your colleagues about what times you're going to be online and offline?
Yeah, we built a database, you know, I know for HKS Richmond, we built a database on everyone that's in the office, what they're working on, who they report to, so that there's clear communication lines for everyone, right? You know, the leadership team has connection points 3 times a week. And so one in the beginning, one in the middle, and one at the end to kind of navigate any unforeseen, you know, people that are light, that become light or finish their work, and just to touch base at a higher level and making sure that, you know, if Ryan needs to, you know, do something for whatever reason, he knows exactly who to talk to and when. And so that's either through Skype, through text, through cell. We're pretty malleable in what makes, you know, our employees most comfortable. So
I'll add in similar to HKS and what Nick was saying. You know, we've had a flex policy for a long time. That flex policy now is being pushed to the extremes we never imagined. And so we've used it. There's experience with it, but now it's just a whole new scale. And I think people are doing very well with it. I'm very impressed so far.
Well said. Well said. Rhea, is there any more questions that you'd like to bring? I think we have time for one more.
I do not see any other questions. I did put one out to the chat group to see if we were to do similar sessions like this, to recommend some topics. And we got a few topics that come in, but I thought maybe I'd put that same question to this group. So as firm leaders in Virginia, are there other discussions that you think would be beneficial for us to convene?
Yeah. I put that question in the lens of a question that you all had asked us to share the largest concerns that we're kind of facing and thinking about. I think that would set up a nice list of next topics to talk about. Obviously, health and wellness, resiliency. I'm seeing those are great things. You know, project stoppage and how we're keeping all of our employees actively working. We have a lot of great thoughts there that we're talking through in terms of each office, and then in terms of the larger HKS. So, and then, you know, the general uncertainty of it all, you know, obviously is on the forefront of our minds. But I'd like to open it up with everyone else's largest concerns so that we can come together and talk about those in more pointed ways.
Corey, I think it would be.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Bob. I was just going to say, Corey, I think it'd be helpful if you could provide an update on what the AIA is doing, what role that organization is playing, and with the various efforts underway to provide help to small businesses. And I saw your message yesterday or the day before, but just a briefing on where things stand and how the AIA is advocating for our profession.
Sure, I think it's a great question. So at the national level, they're obviously engaged in the conversations on what the federal package looks like that comes out, the federal aid package. So that's happening at the national level. Here in the state, the governor has just announced, I think it was yesterday, that there's some small business funding that's going to be coming down the pipe where there's some loans, I believe, to the tune of $2 million that you could get. So I think more info will be coming on that, and I'll be keeping my eye out on that. Specifically for AIA Virginia, I've reached out to the Virginia Department of Emergency Management, as well as the Secretary of Public Health and Homeland Security, and I've gotten plugged into their updates, and I let them know that we're a resource if the time comes where hospitals are stretched to capacity and you need to look at additional buildings, maybe vacant Kmart's or whatever it may be, and transform those into temporary health facilities. Just letting them know that we, as a unit, the 2,500 members we have resources available there that could be a pretty advantageous piece of the conversation. So I've started that ball there. In times like this, everybody wants to help for sure, but you got to be careful not to get in the way. And so just let them know we're there. I'll be sitting there listening to these conversations, and I expect to be utilized actually in a time like this. But that's kind of what we're doing here now.
Well, we certainly appreciate it. And any additional updates that you can provide if we do have additional webinars might be a good thing to add to your agenda.
Absolutely.
If I could, to chime into Ria's earlier question about what the AIA may do with seminars like this or webinars like this, we're looking at this as an opportunity also from a training standpoint that as the unique and maybe there's some slowdown to the point that we can afford to do it. We want to take the time to maybe implement some firm-wide training that we've been too busy to do lately. And we're trying to put that together. I don't know if the AIA could play a role in training aspects through webinars now, maybe the time to get all those learning units we all need.
Mm-hmm.
Just thinking out loud.
Yeah. AIA Richmond is
great.
underway on providing some of those things, Bob, so stay tuned. Sorry, Ria.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and at the state level too, I'm working to organize, I'm imagining at least monthly, but perhaps more frequently, free webinar programming that would earn you HSW credit. So right now I'm working on with a presenter to plan the first one, but we'll hopefully get that rolling pretty regularly so people have one less thing to worry about. So if you have suggestions for topics, please shoot them my way by email. Kathy, and if you wouldn't mind advancing to the next slide, that'll have my email information in here. So please feel free to make suggestions for monthly lunch and learn programming or additional panel discussions like this, and I can help sort of be a clearinghouse for those and pass them along to Corey.
Sure. Hey, Ria, can we take almost like a straw poll to using the chat on a scale of 1 through 5, 5 being very valuable, 1 being not valuable at all, just kind of taking a quick poll on what folks thought of this discussion today and the need to have more of these on certain topics.
Sure. So it looks like people are beginning to answer.
And Ria, you all recorded the session too, so you'll be posting this for anyone that couldn't make it. Excellent.
Yep.
We'll look
Great.
forward
So those
to getting
responses
are... Go ahead, Ria.
Corey.
Sorry.
I was just saying, it looks like those responses are coming in. I'm going to download the chat and make sure that you can view those responses.
Fantastic, and thank everyone for their participation, and thank you, Ria and Kathy, for setting this up. And I suspect it'll get more smoother as we go, but we're just working out the kinks. But Thank you for coming together. And like I said, this is the power of the associations at a time like this, where we might not know all the answers, but it's just important to kind of start the discussion and use each other as resources. And so I wish you the best of luck as we navigate through this together. And please do use the AIA as a resource. We're here for you. So I hope you all have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.